Have you ever lost something and thought to yourself, how did I manage to lose that? I mean, do you remember where you put your keys in? Wallet, right? Most people don't think about when they put something important aside, it may be the last time they see it. For me, that was my DS Lite. Earlier in November, my older sister rented a dumpster to throw out old items throughout the house. This was the culmination of our summer spent cleaning and sorting through all our old stuff. My favorite part was me eating the bags out of the window into the bin down below. By the end of it, the dang thing was nearly full. I originally set up a bounty for $200 for my siblings to find my old DS Lite, and over the summer, I found my siblings' DS, but we didn't find mine. I was hoping my Pokemon Diamond or my brother's Pokemon Ruby cartridge was in it. The days went by and we searched room after room, but our luck on finding older consoles ran dry. We did, however, find some ancient game guides, a Ratchet and Clank guide with a disc in the manual and still inside, as well as one of my favorite games of all time, Super Mario Sunshine. Any 90s kids remember the Burger King Pokemon Gold cards? Oh yeah, we found those as well, along with some old Pokemon merch. Shout out to my parents for getting us all of this while growing up, and I'm happy to have found this all. Then we struck gold. We found it! Oh my god! After all was said and done, we cleaned a good portion of the house, and we found some childhood gems. It felt good to do all that work. With our reward soon after, Thanksgiving food was upon us. After inhaling all the delicious goodies, watching some sports ball and playing through Pokemon, I opened up my laptop to look at my channel. With the recent success of my first video and the new live streaming schedule for Pokemon, I poked around the comment section. In my last video, I talked about collecting my old games. I was honestly so shocked at the response. So many of you shared your amazing stories about your Pokemon adventures growing up, which were all so endearing. The memorials to friends and loved ones were also deeply touching. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. We did a giveaway to show my appreciation for getting it to 10k views, and I expect we'll do a lot more like this in the future. So stay tuned, subscribe, and make sure you turn on the notification bell. I'm so thankful for the recent success of this channel. It was great to read through the comments, reflect on the video, and declutter. Decluttering benefits your mental health by making you feel calmer, happier, and more in control. So if it's one thing I hope you take away from this video is to pause, take some time out of your day, and clean up your mental and physical space. Even if it's just emptying out your garbage can, small actions can build enough momentum to create big change, and I hope it helps with whatever you're working through. All that decluttering didn't stop there. Months ago, my mom planned a trip to Hawaii, where my family originally is from. She was planning to go through my grandma's storage. Back in 2017, my grandfather passed away from my mom's side of the family. So my mom flew out for the funeral service and helped clean out my grandmother's home that they were renting. My grandmother's life was all neatly packed in boxes and stored away. But with the increasing cost of storage, my mom decided it was time to go through and clean it out. 6 years later, it was time to declutter and unpack that part of my mom's life. In anticipation for my trip to Hawaii, I started playing Pokemon Ultra Sun on stream to get me in the mood. This generation was notorious for being long due to dialogue, cutscenes, and tutorials. I knew I wasn't going to finish this playthrough in time for the trip, but at least it was fun to go through. Going back to Hawaii to sort through my grandma's items wasn't the only thing on my to-do list. Many years ago, when the GBA SP was in its heyday, I found myself at a game store in Honolulu. I can't remember the name of the store, but I do remember looking through the GBA selection and finding a cool game called Advance Wars. Excited to play it, I jammed it into my GBA SP, looking to see what it was like. For the uninitiated, Advance Wars is a turn-based military sim game. You have an objective, you need to capture the HQ of the opposing force, and you have to rout your enemy. Initially, I had a blast playing it when I was young, but I wasn't expecting it to be turn-based gameplay. The box cover seemed like you were going to be shooting baddies through a tank. So after a day or two, I convinced my dad to take me back to the shop and return the game. Years later in college, I bought a 2DS and a game called Fire Emblem Fates, and fell in love with the gameplay. I decided to look at the devs' past games and, well, there it was, Advance Wars. Fast forward to the present, back in Hawaii, on a mission to acquire a copy of Advance Wars, and I brought my analog pocket to test it out. Day one was raining, so my uncle called us and told us not to worry about coming in and starting the sorting process. So we spent the day getting some great island food. Best way to eat on a rainy day in Hawaii? Oxtail soup. After eating and some errands, we checked into our hotel and got our bio clocks in sync with the time zone. We ended the day with some K-barbecue and was planning for the next day. I ended my day playing Ultra Sun until I got tired and went to bed. Day 2, we woke up super early and I wanted to go to the local swap meet in my quest for Advance Wars. You might be asking yourself, Yoshi, why don't you just go to the local game stores to see if they have it? Well, the day before, I called stores around the island that collected games in search of a copy. None of them had it. In fact, there aren't a lot of options for retro games on the main island of Oahu. Yes, there's GameStops, but aside from a few bookstores that carry some older games, there aren't any options. The only options I found was Facebook Marketplace and the local swap meet, and the only AW listing on the marketplace was already sold, which leaves us with our final option, the swap meet, where Retro Max has a booth. Max is really the only retro game vendor on the island. It's very comparable versus Hawaii's population and that of the mainland. I was talking to Max and he was talking to me about game preservation here on the island. It's very hard to try and find items. Unfortunately, Max didn't have a copy of Advance Wars. I didn't want to leave empty-handed, so I picked up a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red, Xena Warrior Princess, and MCR Racing. After the swap meet and lunch, we drove over to my uncle's place to begin work sorting through my grandma's belongings. We were making good progress initially when I started going through some locked chests. Curious to see what was inside, my dad cracked open one of them, and in the first box we found some linen, sheets, and underneath them, we found my grandfather's typewriter. We also found some really cool coins that were very old. Afterwards, we tucked it in for the night, and me being exhausted, I was playing some Pokemon to end my night. I woke up early to find out that my DS ran dry. I didn't save my Ultra Sun playthrough. I basically lost 2 islands of progress, but there are more important things to focus on that day. After getting ready and throwing my DS on a charger, we got some breakfast and went to Uncle's place to finish sorting through my grandma's items. I found the last 2 days reflective for my family, specifically for my mom. Since my grandma has been living with us these past few years, she's obviously aging and showing signs of early stage dementia. She has trouble trying to recall what she ate, the time of the day, and knowing where my younger sister's going to college. But she can be as sharp as a knife when recalling long memory. When we were going through her items, she was recalling a lot of her memories. This was also a trip down memory lane for both my parents. My mom sent a lot of photos back to my grandma. When we were going through a box of photos, they would stop, reminisce, pack it up, and move on. I found my grandparents' Polaroid cameras in great condition. I'm a stickler for physical media and having a growing collection of Polaroid film photos. While it was a long, exhausting 2 days, we finally were able to cut down the items into reasonable piles. Dovetailing from my last video, this was also a good opportunity to appreciate the time I still have with my family. To also declutter something that was 6 years in the making. We were planning to go to some relative's house to cap off the night with some poke and steak. But there was one more stop I wanted to make, to visit my dad's grandparents at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. My dad's parents are no longer with us and are resting at the Punch Bowl Cemetery. My grandfather was an Army mechanic reservist and thus was able to be laid to rest here alongside my grandmother. The Punch Bowl Cemetery was formed 75 to 1,000 years ago during the Honolulu period of secondary volcanic activity. For our family, it's always tradition to visit them here. We found their resting place, laid some flowers, and cleaned up the grass around their graves, taking a moment to reflect. Now, at my extended family's place, I was helping cook dinner, and I was looking at my parents and their siblings. A thought came to me. The constant passage of time is showing. We're all aging, growing up. Helping my mom declutter her mom's items, collecting old games, and visiting my dad's parents' resting place are poignant reminders of, yes, our childhood, but reminders of the passage of time. Our time here is finite. Finite like these retro games on Oahu, finite like the time we had on this trip. Landing back in Seattle, it was raining. A little comfort to remind me of home. While I wasn't able to get a copy of Advance Wars in Hawaii, I was able to snag a copy online. I also forgot to ask you guys, do you guys like the mustache? It's been around so long because that was one of the charity incentives. I kept the mustache for the rest of the year. It's something I always like to do for charity incentives, but I don't know, it's kind of stuck with me and I kind of like it. 2023 is coming to an end, so I don't know if we want to keep this mustache or not. If we can get to 100 likes within the first week, we keep the mustache for another month. Let me know you guys' thoughts. Like the video.